Hey, Gear.
Hey, Marsh.
Let's talk comics.
Welcome to the Caffeinated Comic Club, a weekly gathering for comic readers who also have opinions about, well, everything.
Each month, we're going to break down a full run, react to news in the comic world, gab about our weekly pulls, and also sprinkle in our takes on other pop cultures and media.
So pour yourself a cup, pull up a chair, and tell us, what are you sipping on?
See, I think that went really well.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like that's fine. I feel like it's perfect. We're making a podcast.
We are making a podcast. Look at us.
I've never made a podcast before. I do love to talk.
Like I said, I've done it a couple times, but they don't really last that long. So hopefully this one lasts for a hot minute.
Hopefully we will defy the odds and continue this longer than a few episodes.
I hope so. I really do. It's really fun just to like be able to talk about like your interests and niches.
Yeah, and I think that's what's cool about this is that like we've been playing games together for how long now? 2-3 months. And your husband was like, you guys should just start a podcast because we are constantly just yapping. Like
That's
nonstop.
true. That's true. And he said we make it interesting for him as someone who's not a comic book reader. So hopefully it's interesting to people who actually read comic books.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, I would love to see the people that we know from TikTok, but I would also love to hear from people that just have stumbled upon this. I think that would be really cool.
I agree.
So what got you into comics? Give us a little bit of your lore on how you started reading.
So I started reading like the Jumbo, Archie, Veronica little digest things that you can get from the grocery store. I read those like in like elementary school for like the longest time. And then I also remember getting into Calvin and Hobbes when I was really young. I actually stole someone's Calvin and Hobbes books in elementary school, and then he came after me, but I told him I didn't have them. So sorry to Tony, I did steal your Calvin and Hobbes books. Hopefully you don't ever find this podcast.
Did not know that.
But then I actually got into the Fantastic Four via the old, I think it was like, there's like a 70s TV show, and like there was one that was made in the 90s. I got into the Fantastic Four because they were showing those on Boomerang, and I was like, yo, this is really cool. This guy can stretch really far, and Johnny can like, become the Human Torch, and the Thing is the Thing, and then Sue has invisible powers, which she can create invisible force fields. It's like, that is super cool. And so then I got my grandpa to take me to a comic book shop where I picked up Mark Waid's run, and that's where we kind of started. I didn't keep up with it as much just because I was like super young and not able to go to the comic book shop as much as I wanted to, but that's kind of initially what got me into comic books was just the show and the Fantastic Four, and then eventually once the New 52 started, I pulled a lot of DC books, but that's really it. And then, well, obviously the MCU movies, but they help, but that's it. What about you, Gare? What got you into comic books?
Mine is very, very similar to yours. For me, it was the X-Men. When I was 8 years old, we would go to the video store a lot and like rent movies every weekend. My parents were divorced, so I was like going every other weekend, and Dad would always rent a movie and we'd go home and watch it. And he rented X-Men, the live action Hugh Jackman, black leather. And I fell in love. Fell in love with Rogue, with Jean, their powers. Just that movie is just fantastic, and I think that it still is today. I loved it so much, and that led to renting like the old X-Men 92 animated series videos from there as well. And I just kind of fell in love with all the characters and really related to them being like the other and treated differently. At 8 years old, I was like, I get it, I mean,
Yeah.
just being like a nerdy little kid in school and like wanting to talk about things that other kids were just like, I like baseball. And like, that's chill. I love that for you. But I was like, let's talk about Power Rangers and superheroes. And so, yeah, the X-Men, was watching those. And then my dad like had been paying attention and was like, I'm going to take you to a comic shop. And that was the next year when I was 9 in 2001. And I got Extreme X-Men #1. Knew the characters, loved it so much. That book is by Chris Claremont and Salvador LaRocca, who to this day is still like one of my favorite artists of all time. The way that he drew them was just, it was really like dynamic, and I was obsessed. So then again, because I was a kid, I couldn't go to comic shops very often. In fact, I couldn't tell you the next time I went. So I reread that issue over and over and over again until it was destroyed. I've stapled it together so many times. I still have it. She looks like a corpse. She is a zombie. But so yeah, the Extreme X-Men #1, the rest is history. I just love the X-Men so much in a crazy way. Like,
That's cool.
and to this day, I really relate to
That's
it.
really cool.
I like you, I did read New 52. I read Batgirl and some Supergirl, but like I didn't get very deep in it. I've always been like a casual comic reader until like the last years when I really started collecting. I've read comics a lot like
Mhm.
online, but like this year is when I
Right.
really started collecting, and I'm mostly collecting X-Men titles now, as well as like some of my weekly pulls, but I don't think that I'll hang on to most of them for a long time.
That's fair. That's fair. I wish that I had that ability to just like move things out of my collection, but I tend to just be like a hoarder. So
Well, I haven't done
yeah.
that yet. It's more of like an idea that I feel like maybe I wanna do, but I haven't done it yet because I too am a hoarder. So
I mean, as someone, so I had a lot more comics than I have now. And when I moved into my house, I had like, I'm not even joking, like 6 long boxes and like 7 or 8 short boxes. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I need to, clear my collection out. And since that moment, I have been so sad that some books are gone. And like I had like the New 52 Batman run. I had like a good 30 issue run of that. And I was like, I don't need this anymore. And then the second it was gone, I was like, I need like the first 10 back. And I went and rebought them. So as someone who has gotten rid of books, I recommend maybe not.
if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna like have to be very selective. I know, like there are books in my collection that I bought and like I just did not like at all. So like I feel like I'd be okay with
Oh,
getting like
that's
rid
fair.
of those ones, but a lot of the runs that I have are X-Men. I mean I have a lot of Spider-Girl, like the OG Spider-Girl run, and I will never get rid of that because I love her, but I do feel like I need to create a little bit more space. I don't know. But yeah,
Mm,
like the idea
I feel
of
that.
feeling that guilt that you felt getting rid of the New 52, I don't really wanna feel that. So, maybe I won't.
I can recommend it. It feels kind of horrible. Like there is like a good chunk that I was okay with getting rid of. Like I had like a good chunk of like Fables, got rid of those.
Single issues?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy.
I didn't have number 1 though. I didn't have number 1 though, and I bought them all for like $1 a piece, back when half price books actually, like, used to be half price, so you could get stuff for, like, really cheap, but yeah. And then just occasionally some issues would just go missing. They would disappear, but, I won't delve too deep into that.
Period, period.
But, yeah, for the most part, it was, like, a lot of my New 52 stuff, the Fable stuff. I do think I got rid of my Ultimate Fantastic Four, run just because I don't care for it as much as other people seem to like it, even though it did create the maker and, like, it's also, like, bleeding into, like, the Ultimates and Ultimate Spider-Man and all that stuff, but, like, as a whole, honestly, that run, I'm gonna say it, kinda sucks.
You didn't fuck with the End Zone? Sorry, I've read 5 issues of that, and I was like, "Negative is just a word. Like, why did we have to be, like, edgy and call it the End Zone? What do you mean?"
Because just like they had to change Victor Von Doom to Victor Van Dam or whatever it
Don't
was.
even get me started. That shit is crazy to me. Who wrote that book? Was it Millar?
I think it was Millar, but I feel like Bendis also was in on it, like helped create some of it. Bendis and Millar, yeah, it was right. It was both it's both of them.
Well, that explains everything, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. Listen, you know the journey. For anyone who's listening who doesn't know, I spent the majority of December trying to read every book in the original Ultimate Universe, and one of those 2 writers is now a mortal enemy of mine, and that's all I'm gonna say. Don't read those books unless you wanna read Ultimate Spider-Man because it's
Actually
fantastic.
Actually, Bendis and Millar only wrote 1 through 6. It looks like Warren Ellis took over the helm after that.
So the ones that I read were by Millar. That tracks. That tracks.
Yes, yes.
Okay. You brought up you had the New 52 Batman run. Something that we've bonded over is that we are kind of Marvel people and we haven't really read a whole lot of DC, which is one of the reasons that we started this podcast was so that we could be accountable and read more DC comics together.
Mhm,
How
that's true.
much DC do you think, like, would you say you've read in the past? Like, for me, I read the Batgirl New 52 run and most of the Supergirl New 52, and until last August, I had not read a DC book in years, until I picked up Batgirl, the Cassandra Cain run.
Okay, so I think you and I both kind of have, excuse me, the same kind of comic book experience. Like we were in it for a little while during the New 52. So like I read the Batman run, I read Superman, I read the Justice League. and I read JLA. Those are the ones I remember, oh, and Aquaman. Those are the ones I remember the most. And then after a couple years while that was going on, I stopped reading comics. But I'd also read like the typical Batman stories like Hush, The Long Halloween, Under the Red Hood. That's really it, I think. I mean, much like now, I was much more of a Marvel girly than I was a DC. Just because I DC seems to be more gritty, and sometimes I just want fun and lightheartedness and color in my comic books. Where it seems like, especially like in the early 2010s, that it was still kind of like gritty-ish DC.
Yeah, I really relate to that. That is kind of the thing that pushed me away because I do also prefer fun and like color. And like DC books can be fun and the stories are great, but I like there's something about the beautiful like rainbow that is X-Men that is a lot of the Marvel books. And
Mhm.
like I will say like I am finding that kind of in like the Bat family stories. I really like stories of community, stories of family, and that's kind of what X-Men is. And so I've really enjoyed seeing that in the Batman books so far. But I mean, when it comes to DC, other than that, I know basically nothing outside of Gotham and wherever the hell Kara hangs out, Supergirl hangs out. And there's a lot of color in that. And I think that's what drew me to that run.
Oh,
It
that's
is
fair.
dark.
That's fair. Oh, I also read Nightwing. Nightwing's probably my favorite DC book, really. I just love Dick Grayson.
The New 52 run, is that what you're talking about?
Uh, all of them. So I actually have I have from the New 52 run up to current, all in single issues.
Well, that's
Um,
incredible.
and I have a good chunk of like the Chuck Dixon run too. I ended up buying a whole bunch of it from a flea market a little while ago. So I have a lot of the Nightwing runs, but I do think my favorite Nightwing run that I've read is probably Tom Taylor's, and a lot of people will give me flack for that. But like I said, he just brought a charm to it, a more slice of life kind of version of Dick Grayson, where you get to see him kind of be happy with Babs, and you see him adopt a dog, and you see color and just the art by uh, Bruno Redondo was also just so good, and I just love that it just wasn't gritty all the time. Now, don't get me wrong, Dan Waters came in, made it a bit more gritty, made it a bit more dark, which is fine, but there are still, well, no, not really. I was gonna say there are some lighthearted moments, but currently there aren't any. But it was just nice to go from like dark, gritty to like colorful and happy to like more dark and gritty, which I think DC, like we've just discussed, relies more heavily on to be dark and gritty than be like colorful and people are happy and just I wish superheroes could be happy.
I agree with that. I do think that DC does thrive in the dark and gritty. Like the book that we're going to talk about next episode, I feel like is incredibly dark and gritty and it's fantastic,
Mm,
but it is heavy. I think I read the
right,
first
yeah.
two trades of the Tom Taylor Nightwing run and I loved it. I love the idea that Dick's whole perspective on life changes after the death of Alfred, because it would. Like it absolutely would. And I think
Mhm.
that he would be trying to find a little bit more light in it than wallow and lean into the dark and gritty. So it is nice to see him with a dog. It is nice to see him and Babs have something a little bit more defined, you know? And
Hmm. Yep.
I don't understand the hate for it. I have not read any of the Dan Waters run, but I have seen screenshots, like or frames, panels from it. And the thing that happened, was it this past week? Or was it's like one of the most recent issues that you showed me is crazy, is bonkers. And so
Yes.
dark and gritty, dark and gritty.
You know, I was telling you that I don't really care for the dark and gritty, and I guess that's not necessarily true because I forgot. I also read a lot of Green Arrow. The lightheartedness of Joshua Williamson's run on Green Arrow didn't vibe with me as much as when we got back down to the roots when Chris Condon took the reins, and it was dark and gritty, and the art in it, I don't remember who the artist is off the top of my head, but the art in it just matched the vibe so well, and it brought me back to like Mike Grell's run from the 80s that was so good and it was dark and gritty. So I guess while I say I want DC to be more lighthearted and colorful, I think with certain characters the dark and gritty hits where it's supposed to. And I think in Green Arrow, I think it's like a perfect place to be dark and gritty, but then it also still has lightheartedness, so it kind of is able to cut through the dark and gritty during some points.
When it comes to characters, I think that's why people prefer like this current iteration of Superman in the films, David Cornswet versus Henry Cavill's Man of Steel. Like that was a very dark and gritty, albeit incredibly boring film. And this new one is so hopeful. And like it's the first Superman movie in a very, very long time that has incredible reviews and is pretty much loved by everyone in the community. I think it is a character by character basis because you know what? Like, as much as I do like Absolute Superman,
Mhm.
that's just heavy. Like, it is dark. And sometimes you kind of want specific characters to be in the light a little bit more. Homie's literally flying, you know? Get him out of the shadows.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not reading Absolute Superman. I only read like maybe the first arc, but I do remember it being super, super heavy. And like Absolute Batman's super, super heavy.
But yeah, I do like I said, I do agree that it's case by case. And I think that like in our next episode when we talk about Gotham Central, that is a case where so far Dark and Gritty works really well because I don't know how you could tell the story that we're going to get into any other way. But like the brutal honesty of how Dark and Gritty it is to be a public service worker in Gotham City.
Agreed. There is no lighthearted way to bring the experience of being a Gotham City police officer to book form without it being dark and gritty for sure.
And if there is, we have yet to see it because it is
I don't think we will.
rough. I don't think we will either. So yeah, this episode was just an introduction as to who we are, our backgrounds in comics. And next episode, we are going to dive headfirst into the first 10 issues of Gotham Central.
And they are written by Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka, and the art is by Michael Lark, which I think his art adds so much to the story itself.
I agree. I feel like it is perfectly fitting for the story that they are telling, and the story is rough, and we're gonna dive into it. We're gonna talk about it in depth.
For sure we are.
So yeah, if you want to hear us dive into the happy-go-lucky stories of the Gotham City Police Department, go to the next episode and listen. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is
You
brought
didn't
to
like
you
my
by.
bye?
You know what else we didn't do? We didn't even say what we
What
were
we done do?
drinking.
Shit.
What are you sipping on?
I am sipping on a cherry slush Alani.
So deeply jealous. I'm drinking a Diet Coke. See you guys in the next episode.